I don't care to set world records. Play games for fun, dude.
I'm a psycho. I play hundreds and hundreds of hours of these games. We talk about a lot of weird things on this podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, technical difficulties. I put it on the wrong screen. Here we go. We're there. Dude, okay, so we're live. Welcome, John. But just so you know, every single stream, no matter if I'm on the regular Militia or off topic, there is some technical difficulty that happens at the very beginning. No audio. I don't know. In this case, it was the screen. Yeah, it's classic, dude.
Classic.
I think, you know what happened? I'll just explain it real quick because I feel like I messed that up. And we can just go back and do it again if you want. But I have a Steam Deck that changes my scenes in OBS, okay? Mm-hmm. And I have the main podcast scene set up, which is just me and Steven. So I wasn't prepared for the 3-person screen. Anyways, whatever, man.
So good. Like, technical difficulties never happen in the games industry.
No, not at all, man. Not at all. Welcome to the fucking podcast, man. How are you?
Happy fucking Thursday. Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness. I'm so grateful, honestly, for you to be here. Yeah. It's crazy. I never in a million years would I imagine myself to be in this situation, talking to someone like you who's been in the industry a while and makes games for a living. I'm 30, I don't even remember anymore. I'm 36. Yeah. I think. Yeah. I never thought as a kid, I loved games my entire life. I never thought as a kid I'd be doing something, what I'm doing now, let alone, being important enough to get the attention of an official person like you.
That's like the weirdest thing on the back of that anyway, because I was having a bit of I'll probably go straight into a tangent. People that I work with will know that I'm tangent a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was having a really kind of strange, similar thought, right? So I've had that a couple of times in the recent couple of weeks where people were like, "Well, it's such a pleasure to meet you." Blah blah. I'm like, I'm just me.
Just a guy.
Just me.
Yeah, just a guy.
I'm not even trying to sound like anything weird around it, but I literally had the situation where sitting there playing the game just after it gone live, so like Volume 7, and I was sitting there. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm playing Drag, and we'll get into it properly in a bit. But I love Drag, and I wanted to bring back kind of old school Drag, like underground Drag, those kind of vibes, lane switching, gear shifting, like all that kind of stuff, right? For quite a while now, even before we started doing what we were doing on the live service here, and it was just at that moment, that kind of weird moment, sitting there 1 o'clock in the morning in my front room playing a game, and I was like, holy shit, like the 10-year-old me who was playing this back on the PS2 made this happen with the team. It was that weird moment.
It gives me chills, honestly, because I feel the same way. Like, I'll be honest, I'm nobody. I'm just a guy making entertainment content and educational stuff online. It's not anything, but when I get these messages that are like so grateful for the help that I'm providing, it gives me chills because I never thought I'd be doing this ever. Like, it never occurred to me. So yeah, I totally feel what you're talking. It's like the imposter syndrome or whatever you want to say. So it is what it is. Anyways,
that's kind of,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just that's exactly it.
I just wanted to say, like, I'm very excited. I'm very excited to talk to you, that's for sure, as you can probably tell.
Yeah, it is crazy, especially for like what this podcast is,
Yeah.
Like,
it's a dumpster fire, dude.
Trigger was like, "Yo, Volume 7's coming out. I'm gonna message him, see if I want to come on." And I'm like, "What's the worst gonna happen? He's gonna say no." Like, okay, go for it, dude.
I was like, "Man, go for it."
It's my thing. Like, I love talking. Well, I obviously love talking the stuff I'm working on, but I just love talking games in general. Like, it is my thing and been my thing for the longest time. So
yeah.
Awesome.
I watched a little bit of an interview that you did with Guild for Games last year, like right after launch. I not a lot of people saw that on YouTube. Maybe it was published other places, but I watched it as it wasn't my idea. I'm gonna have to give credit to Steven on this one. He was like, "Hey, you should watch this." I had no idea it existed. Anyways, I watched it and I was thinking during that interview, I was like, man, he really is like, you really love games. You decided very early on that you wanted to be in the games industry, and I was like, that is a decision that I also made, but it wasn't a reality for me in my life. So I had to wait a little while and then try to create that. But yeah, you're like, you love games. You've been in games forever.
Yeah, I kind of like, I really thought it was, sorry, tangents. Ultra Riku. Yeah, I just seen in the chat, it's, oh my God, I'm going to forget your name now. That's really, or maybe I just like doxed him now. I shouldn't have said his real name. Anyway, but like, yeah, I used to work with him at Sega. Hey, dude, how you doing?
That's hilarious. So someone in chat you're talking about?
Yeah. Sorry,
Okay, all right.
So for the longest time, for games, like since I was a kid, like, and this, oh man, this is like goes back to my history now. I feel like this is your life. But we. When I was a kid, my dad got me a Commodore 64, and this is how old I am. Although, well, I'm 38, so I'm like a couple of years old.
Yeah.
But it was like the first thing he got, and like playing Paperboy and Turtles and that kind of stuff on there. And I don't know, I was just like, holy cow, this is the coolest thing. And ever since we got that, anytime there was anything gaming around, or I went to a friend's house or relative's house or whatever it was, I would always. I'm glad you said how impromptu this podcast is as well.
Yeah, dude, it's so okay. Go wherever you want with it, man. It's all good.
Right, seeing as you're gaming related as well, come here. Oh, there's my dog Link.
There we go.
Hey,
look at him.
Hold on, Link, you're famous. Right. Okay, right, but yeah, Link. I love Zelda. Anyway, so yeah, like ever since then, anytime I go to relative cell, anything, I was always just like, there's anything to do with computer games, I want in on it, and I want to be able to just consume it. And I'd never really kind of, when I was at school and stuff, I always just thought, well, creating the games industry is ridiculous. There's no way you can do that. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I remember actually having a like careers meet at one point where somebody came in and said, "What do you want to do?" And I said about going into it, and they're like, "Oh, that's that's great." But
they're like,
maybe you want to try doing something that you might actually get into, or
something you can make some money with, or
Yeah. So I started thinking, okay, well maybe I could, maybe architecture. So there was a time when I started like thinking about getting into architecture. And
no way, dude. I did civil engineering and studied architecture like my last years of high school, and then I decided I wanted to do that in college, and then I did it for like a semester, and I said no way. But I did have some interest in it. That's why.
I did like a work experience week, and I ended up doing learning how to use AutoCAD and some stuff like that, like bits and pieces. And it was like after doing a week of AutoCAD, I was like, nope, like this is not for me.
Yeah, same. Same. Hey, shout out to Mateo in chat, man. Mateo's been a long time viewer of the channel. He just donated $10. Thank you so much, dude. He says thanks to John for coming on. It shows recognition of MGC's immense contributions to Need for Speed for the past few years. I appreciate that, Mateo. You have no idea. And he's got that purple badge. And I know, John, you don't know what that means, but that means he's been a member of the channel for a very significant amount of time. I think he's close to getting his gold badge, which I think is like a year. So anyways, thank you, Mateo. Appreciate it, man. I really do. Anyway, I never addressed chat when we came in because I was so excited to talk to you. So I'll say hello to everybody for a little bit. But I'm pumped, man. I'm excited to have you on, and you can take it wherever you want to go. Chat, if you guys want to ask questions, you take this podcast wherever we want to go. It is called Off Topic anyways. So, and of course we have some towards the end of the podcast. I'm going to give you a few random questions that we want to ask our guests. We don't really have guests, but since you're here, I feel like we should do something that's kind of semi-podcast official, like asking random questions. We'll do that towards the end. Anyways, I'm pumped on Volume 7, dude. Seriously,
yeah, dude, it's great.
It is for sure the most meaningful addition to the game from my point of view since launch, for sure. Second, maybe to link ups. I would say link ups changed the game quite a bit. Anyways, I I'm super excited, but you also owe me an apology because I haven't gotten any sleep since the game. You owe me an apology. So
it dropped late for us, man. We've been up.
I literally, dude, the sleep schedule has been terrible. I went to bed at 8 p.m. on Monday, and then woke up at 1:30 a.m. and played all night from then until about 10:30 or 11 in the morning, and then went to bed. Woke up around dinner time, had dinner, put my son to bed when he went to bed at 8, and then I played again pretty much again all night. Anyway, it's been a great time. I'll be honest. What a great addition to the game.
I really appreciate it. And yeah, the team have like really grafted on this one. Yeah. I think like at the beginning when we were starting to plan out the different volumes, like what we took on for volume 7, we knew was pretty chunky for the team, what we were doing. But honestly, like even through some ups and downs and stuff, like they really knocked out the park, and I couldn't be happier with not only the way in which we managed to get Dragon, like I say, because it really hits back on that kind of old school vibes of it. And that even is, honestly, it's not even just from a nostalgia standpoint of like, oh, hey, we're playing up underground and anything like that. It's because it comes from a gameplay variation piece for me. Around, if you think about being in the world and what you're doing, and you're doing races, and we've got, obviously the different type of events, like it's having that different event in which makes you not only play differently in the way you're literally holding the controller and what you need to do if you're playing controller, right? But it's then thinking about, okay, how am I going to set my car up? What am I actually doing? What's the kind of cognitive load for the player around? I'm not having to worry about like the actual analog moving around because I've got the lane switching. This is all about gear shifting. This is all about when am I going to drop the nods. It's that looking for those different ways to play in the car. And that kind of obviously extends out to drift as well, and then what we wanted to do there with drift, and then really change up the drift handling, and just adding that extra layer of kind of skill and mastery to what drift is.
The drift feels great. It feels so good. It's a ton of fun, dude. I'm loving the new drift handling. I was just playing for like 2 hours before this started.
It's sort of like the one-man army that is Rocco, who's our handling designer, is the guy who's been on that. So obviously there's other people in the team as well before we'd started on this year of live service that had been doing work there on the handling systems as well. But Rocco's been the one who's sort of taken it forward. So he deserves loads of props for this. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, that's incredible. And to be honest with you, the decision to tie it to a specific part, I said this in like, I think, I don't know if it was this last video or the one before that, but the decision to tie it to a part of the car, like the tires, is absolutely genius, because it allows people to sort of experience every possible handling model that you guys are offering in the game, but to do it in free roam. Like they don't have to be in a specific event. They don't have to be waiting for someone to accept a playlist invite or waiting for the playlist to rotate in PvP. They can just go out and just literally go and tandem with people in free roam, and I think that's is a huge win for the handling, for sure.
I was muting myself for a second because my daughter's telling the dog off. It's really surprising actually, adding something like that to the game and you seeing the world. And obviously I've been privy to Lakeshore now for coming on, I don't want to say how many years, quite a few years. But then seeing Lakeshore in a whole new view of then having the drift tires on there and experiencing, it's like, hey, the props that are in the world, or even the way like some of the cars are parked up in the car park, and there was no way we would have been able to drift around these cars before, right? And now there's whole new lines that start to appear. There's whole new, and it's great. It's great to be able to get in that world and just be able to play more in it after being in it for so long. So, I mean, it's something that we'd been thinking about for quite a while. It isn't just because this is, the underground volume, and we want to then kind of index back on the underground. It's about us taking what Need for Speed is forward, taking it further, adding more depth to it, adding more of the things which are right for the players, right? So, I'm excited to then as per Kaizen. And if I say that as per Kaizen in the office, then people start saying shots. You need to take a shot because I just bang out.
You say it a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I do say it a lot.
I don't even work with you, and I think I've heard it 50 times. So
I think at this point I'm gonna have to get a tattoo or something.
Yes, for sure.
As per that, it is building though. It's like trying to make Need for Speed into this, ultimate kind of destination when we can, or learn from it basically, so that we can then make it this ultimate destination in the future when we can. So
yeah, it's awesome.
It is awesome. I think obviously we don't, as viewers, as gamers, as people just playing the game, we don't really get to see or know what's going on behind the scenes. And I feel like the Kaizen this whole year basically, and the direction that you guys are going and the transparency and all that, I think is so meaningful to the community, because it allows them to sort of maybe just understand the challenges associated with making a game like this, and where you guys want to take the game in the future, and how you plan on doing that. And that's through feedback from the community, which has really not been a thing with Need for Speed games. At least since I've been making content on it. I felt like we sort of got shafted a little bit with Need for Speed Heat, because it was one of the games I think people really resonated with. Need for Speed fans did. And then I think it just got cut off real fast, and we just didn't get to see this type of support. So to see this support on the game, everybody's pumped on the idea of being able to see more and more stuff, and then be sort of involved in the game going forward. Like whatever the Need for Speed Next is going to be, it's literally being shaped right now by us playing the game and giving feedback. And I think that's it's incredible, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and that's not like 100%. I'm glad you picked up on it as well. It's not a line. That is, we are, as much as we want to put out the right content now, and we want to build a great kind of second year of live service for what we're doing on Unbound, this is all about learning as well, understanding our players, understanding what's resonating, what's not. We see the feedback, and we can't always action all of it. Of course, we'd like to action as much as possible, but it's just not possible. We see it, we take it in, we collate it, we understand it. And it really is just, I don't know, we should be making a game that's right for the players, right? So and that's what we want to do. So I was laughing a little bit as well, because I said about doing the whole Kaizen thing, and then Pat just popped up in the chat and said shot.
So Nura says, speaking of Kaizen, Nura says he wants Kaizen merch when. Is that a possibility?
Oh, the merch side, again, it comes down to lots of different things, as often is on the legal side, licensing side, all of the kind of bits that come with that, right? So totally would never say no on that. I think it'd be cool. Definitely could be out there repping. I mean, I like to wear my Need for Speed t-shirt, not just when I'm on podcast. So it's cool, right? I'd love to be able to at some point in the future get to that.
Yeah, I think a while back when I played a lot of Destiny 2, there was particular achievements that you would have to complete in game and are linked to your account. And then when you did that, you were given a coupon to buy a particular shirt, a Destiny shirt. And it was like a badge of honor to have that. I have two of them, by the way. There are two different things. And you pay I don't know what, $25-$30 or whatever for the shirt. But if you don't have the coupon, which you get for unlocking it in game, the shirt costs like $7,000, right? So they have it for sale for $7,000, but obviously no one's paying that. Anyway, I think that would be a cool thing to do with the whole Kaizen thing. Maybe towards the end, just run it by legal. Maybe we can get something like that, because I don't know, Kaizen, the whole thing is just it just so, I don't know, it's so indicative of where the mindset is right now for Criterion, for the Need for Speed franchise, and obviously for the fans. I mean, the people playing right now are definitely pumped on the strategy you guys have right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that would go down well. EA putting out a £7,000 t-shirt, but
you never know, dude.
Yeah, I love the idea of it though. I love so there's some stuff as well that I really like in terms of the way certain brands on merchandise is done. I've always loved N7. like for Mass Effect.
Yes.
I really like understated things where if you know, you know, and that was like it's such a cool thing to be able to do. And I think we could then do some really good stuff on the niche speed side as well, right?
Yep. So 100%.
Yeah. So yeah, that'd definitely be cool in the future.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then we have like some really talented artists in the studio as well that are always up for making t-shirts and such. So.
Are those decisions things that they have to bring you in on? Like, what, you're a creative director, and none of us in chat, nor myself or Steven, know what that means exactly.
No idea what that is. So
we know that you make the game, right? But we don't know what that means. Like, what is a creative director in the games industry?
So the kind of I guess the dictionary version of that would be, as creative director, overseeing the creative parts of the game. So we're talking design, audio, narrative, like kind of the main components that then come with that, right? The art side, VFX, those kind of things. But it's kind of like a lot more nuanced than that, and it can be dependent on the game, dependent on the studio, depending on how you work, right? But for me, it's more about, and especially on Kaizen with the kind of like tight-knit team that we are, it's about setting some of the direction around the, or actually setting the kind of the vision direction to start off with, whatever we're doing for the project as a whole. So just kind of second year of live service. And then for each time that we then drop a volume, for going in with the team and saying, okay, this is kind of vision for the actual volume. This is the high level vision around what we want to do. Making sure there's enough direction there so that it's not like a blank canvas and then the guys are sort of like, what the hell do you want?
Right.
But at the same time, making sure it's not as prescribed so that there's not freedom and kind of like, creatives that they can then put in themselves.
Right.
So as an example, for this particular volume, I'd come in and go, right, so obviously we're going to be inspired by Need for Speed Underground, so take that as reference, understand what we want to do there. We also then want to think about really indexing on nostalgia. What were the feels, what were the vibes, like going back to those previous games? And then understanding about, for us, as part of that kind of mission statement we've been thinking about for Kaizen around this ultimate destination, is then how are we going to make sure that the gameplay that we're getting in really adds to and feels different to other gameplay that we've got in there.
Right.
And then even taking cues right on the theme wise of Underground, how can we then tie in some of the UI feel, for example? How can we tie in some of the styling? So you'll see on the League side, for example, one of our UI artists, Celeste, done a great job and then taking and recreating the kind of Underground style for the League sticker that we've got on there.
Yes.
And even like the whole League screen, right? Like looking at the backgrounds, indexing on kind of the blue and orange color schemes, small pieces, right? Like even pushing that blue and orange color scheme. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but all of the checkpoints and all of the chevrons and stuff in the game are now blue and orange, like to fit the color scheme of Underground.
Now you say it, I do. Yes, all the checkpoints are blue and orange.
I did not even see that. Oh my god! I think I was just so distracted by the actual gameplay that I can't.
Yeah.
I missed it.
So it's cool. So yeah, I kind of going through those pieces, and then a lot of my time is often then spent jumping in reviews, checking where particular designs are. My role within Criterion as well, I also lead the design team as well, so I've got a bunch of stuff that I do there in terms of from a craft standpoint or from any of the kind of designs that come through. And so yeah, I'll be doing reviews, jumping in, kicking off, or it might be something, for example, like yesterday, going through and then starting to think about what we're going to do for key art for the volumes. So we start talking about key art for volume 8, which I'm going to talk about yet. So those kind of things. So it's super interesting, and I love it. The reason I love being in this role as well isn't because some people can perceive like creative director as the person who's coming in and going, this is what the game is, this is what we're going to do, everyone go do this. It's not. Being a creative director, well, from at least what I think anyway, being a creative director is being somebody who's there to then, like I say, set enough direction, set enough of a vision so that people have got a direction to go in, literally the right direction, but with enough boundaries so that they've then got the freedom to explore and have that autonomy. And it's about, I think, being a really good connector. It's about thinking about the art, the audio, the narrative, the art, everything that comes together, and thinking about how can we make this kind of cohesive package, and how can we pull up on these strings and bring people together just to do the best work they can do. So it's more about like bit of a kind of shepherd, right? Sort of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just herding, and not the people.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
people.
Just all your sheep that you have.
It's the ideas and the bits. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, I love it. I love like the varying kind of challenges that come up every day too. So that there's never the same day twice ever. It's always something different each day.
Yeah, it's awesome.
What's the biggest difference? Because I think but previously your title was gameplay design director. Is there like a big difference between that and creative director?
I'd say the biggest bit on that is, so yeah, when previous role as design director was back on Unbound, so I did primarily the campaign side of things on Unbound, but I then kind of expanded out doing other bits of the game too. Some of the multiplayer side, there's a whole bunch of different pieces, but now it's kind of that more holistic view. It's like, how do not just one section of the game or one particular feature or one game mode, how does that come together? It's how do all the bits come together.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. And there's obviously like cool things then as well about thinking about, future pieces, understanding the player more as well. I think as design, we tend to push and do that anyway. So most of our designers will then get in, understand who the player types are. We look at telemetry, make sure we understand what player motivations are.
Yep.
But personally being able to then jump in with like the likes of you guys on the player council and then like various people in different places, like it's great to be able to have that get close to it. So
yeah, that was just to kind of speak a little bit on the player council experience. I've done it a little bit here on the podcast before, but I thought it was such a, I don't know, it was a unique experience for me personally, but I thought it was such a great move and decision by whoever made the decision to do that. I feel like the idea of getting feedback from players and from community leaders is just so important, because I can imagine that when you're making a game, when you're making all of these decisions, or you come up with, like, let's say the art style, for example, you are sort of like in a bubble a little bit, right? Like, you have the people around you, you guys are all kind of bouncing ideas off each other, but like the outside is not really getting to see any of that when it's being cooked. So you don't really have a lot of like outside feedback that you can gather. Am I wrong on that? And no,
it's right. I mean, there's certain things we do. So, we'll push stuff outwardly we do something called like UXR sessions. So we'll do user experience sessions where people come in and they'll play test the game early, give their feedback, we get impressions. But obviously it's on a much smaller scale than, the global scale that we end up pushing it out to. I think the thing that we changed up, or we're really cognizant of now of the player council that we formed, is that we wanted to make sure we had people like yourself, people who are very active within Reddit, people who truly understand the game, the nuances, and not just the game, the franchise at large.
Yeah.
Because again, like I say, it's really important for us to make the game that's right for the players. And part of the gift and the curse that is Need for Speed of being a 30-year-old franchise is that it's been in so many different places. Everyone's got their own favorite. Everyone's got the feature that is the most important that needs to be had, right? So kind of distill all of that information down, understand what's super important, and then making sure we're hitting those right beats that's going to, satisfy as many people as possible is a tough job. So we need to understand what you guys are saying.
Yeah, totally. And that was one of the things I thought was quite well done about the player council, was that you were very interested in the foundation. Like, what are the pillars of the game? Like, let's get those like super solid, and then everything around that, let's maybe try to add as much of that stuff as possible. That kind of that's the way I felt the meetings went. And I thought that's great. That's exactly how I would have attacked the next game. Is let's figure out what is the most important. Let's get those set up. Then we can start adding all the fun stuff that maybe isn't like a core feature of the game, but it seems like a fair number of people would like. And obviously, you can't make a game for everybody, right? It's just not a thing. I mean, GTA got close, but they still piss off the moms that don't want to see cursing or hookers in the game. And so that's, it's still not for everybody, right? So But anyways, I just thought it was a good idea. It was good. It was smart to go that direction. So I think everyone should kind of feel that the game is certainly in good hands. At least that's my impression. And we might have to wait a little while to get whatever that next Need for Speed is, because you guys are currently just really hammering Unbound. But I know a lot of people, including a lot of the competitive side of things, is very interested in to see what the next game holds. Obviously, we can't talk too much about it here, but I think in general, the player sentiment around the game is wildly more positive than it was a year ago.
I'm super glad to see it as well. Obviously, you can get sort of sucked into kind of an echo chamber and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I'm really, I don't know, enthused, I guess, to see the responses that we've got so far on Volume 7 and from Volume 6, of course. Yeah, I really, it is that thing. It's the thing around. So obviously on my X feed, my social feeds, right? I see a lot of stuff where people will either tag me in it, or because I'm then looking within stuff in the game industry, or with stuff within car culture, stuff within, anything racing game wise. You get that thing sometimes where you think, am I just sitting in this echo chamber? Am I seeing this one particular piece, right? But yeah, by and large, it does seem that the feedback's pretty good. Hope it is. And if it's not, and if people have got concerns, then there's always fire it out there, and we try to grab as much as possible and then see what we can address. So.
Well, I can tell you one thing I hate, and that's the new handling model. But yeah, I am not in the majority. The majority of players love that. They love it, and I'm just not.
About it. What don't you like about it?
So there's this. Okay, I'm gonna be really self-aware and honest right now. I'm a little older for someone to be playing any type of game.
Brave.
Yeah. I'm a little older, and so I don't like change that much, and so it takes me a long time to get used to whatever the new thing is. So with Unbound, it took me a while to get used to the handling model, and I finally felt like I had it under wraps. And then with the change to the Audis, when you introduce the Audis, there was one thing I was struggling with, and that's micro drifting. You can't really keep a drift alive between corners unless you do like a mostly drift build. Like if your handling model is set to drift mostly, then you can sort of, freely micro drift. But for full grip builds, which is the way I prefer to drive in Unbound, it was insanely hard to keep drifts alive, like to really keep your burst NOS alive. So when you're trying to chain burst NOS and use it mid corner and then receive your grip NOS for that corner and then use that grip NOS on the ensuing corner, you can't keep it alive because you can't micro drift in between. And so I was like, this is, I hate this. I don't like it at all. And it's a small thing. I think I'm being more hard on it than I should be. I think a lot of people really like it, but that's one thing that just, I don't know, it wasn't for me.
I don't think you're being overly hard on it. I think us being able to get to a place where the handling model can do all of and I go back to the whole 30-year kind of franchise piece, right?
Yeah.
In the handling of Need for Speed's been many different things over the years.
Sure.
But us getting to a place where then people can put the handling into a place where they want it to be, and obviously we've made steps on Unbound, and then coming back more towards grip, because that was had been lacking before. We've been very kind of drift heavy.
Yep.
So bringing that back, and I think it's that stepstone approach, right? It's like we've made some improvements there, and then going forward for whatever we end up doing next, we want to make sure that there's a much deeper kind of range so that people can get in and tweak the handling to exactly how they want it to be, and that the overarching system's light boost and are reactive to your playstyle, right? So
yeah, definitely. And yeah, that brings me to a question actually that I was thinking about before we started, which is we talked a little bit about the drift handling being tied to that tire. Is it even possible? Is it even possible? You don't have to tell me if you're gonna do it, but is it even possible to tie the Audi handling model to a part so that it can be optional for every car?
I wouldn't know the exact technical ins and outs of it, and I wouldn't like to comment on it properly because I probably can feel Rocco like burning in the back of my ear already.
He's like, no, no, John.
I think in terms of like what I will say is the way in which we set our vehicles up for Need for Speed is that they are truly an actual physical vehicle underneath, and they behave like a real world vehicle would in many cases. We put a lot of kind of tweaks and dampeners on top to then make the handling more accessible. But then, so the values that are actually being changed in there to change the handling to how it is for the Audis isn't is a lot more complicated than what we've done for the drift tire.
Gotcha. And that's what we were wondering. Steve and I were just talking about this before you jumped in, is that the drift handling feels complicated. Like the change is so dramatic that it actually feels like you guys did something. I'm not trying to take anything away from what Rocco did with the drift handling, but it feels very dramatic and in a good way. And it feels like you guys had to do a lot of like tweaks because it's so much different from any type of drifting that we felt in the game so far. So we were wondering like, oh, what if they could do that with the Audi handling to, you know, a specific tire or whatever, suspension or, you know, whatever. It'd be kind of cool if that was the case, because I know a lot of people like the Audi handling, and I'm just not a fan. But again, I'm the minority on this one.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to play much with the BMW and the Dark Horse stuff?
Yes, they feel very similar to the Audis, especially the M3. The M3 is sort of interesting. I've done mostly drag racing with it. I haven't really haven't had a lot of racing time with it. I played a little bit of the playlist that was active. I think it's still active, isn't it? It's a permanent one right now, the M3 playlist. Yeah. So anyway, that one I played a little bit, and it feels to me just like the RS6, like almost identical. So yeah, it's good. I mean, I feel like those cars, they're almost perfect for like an in-between build. Like it's something that's not full grip and something that's not full drift. It feels like they drive better that way than almost like just straight up neutral handling.
Yeah, they do feel a little bit more hybrid actually in that sense, and I often feel like, especially in the RS6, I really like to have that choosing the way that I'm going to act for the particular turn, whether it is going to be grip or drift, in that sense. So it's something new, something that we're trying.
I gotta entertain these two comments in the chat, because these two guys I've known for a while, and they're gonna kill me if I don't say anything.
Yeah, go for it.
So Leon Unleashed brings something up that I thought might be interesting to talk about, which is that the way that the grip burst NOS fills up your bar is different than the way that the drift one does. So like you don't get rewarded with a grip burst until you're finished with the turn, as opposed to it building like the drift does. That simple change would effectively make racing side by side somebody more possible, and that leans into the more competitive racers. So he's asking for you to do that. You don't have to like tell me if it's, you know, whatever, but it just take that as a piece of feedback, is that the way that grip NOS builds is not, or the way that you're rewarded that grip NOS is not necessarily super conducive to racing side by side.
Yeah, and again, like not knowing or not wanting to speak with authority about the full ins and outs of how the system is working. The thing that I kind of remember and kind of think about on that is recognizer for a grip turn versus a drift turn is a lot harder to recognize, because what the player is doing at that time, it's like, am I just taking a line normally, or am I? So you'll see like it's the grip burst NOS tends to come in. You get the recognizer for it after doing a quite significant turn, because then it recognizes the fact that you've done that grip. Not to say that we couldn't go in and change it, or not like in the future, for example, or not to say that we couldn't make a system that was going to be better at recognizing. But I think that might be one of the things that's there at the moment. But certainly, I'll pass it on. The guys will no doubt be watching, listening now, so we can pass it on.
And
take a look into
it. Like I said, it's coming from someone in the competitive community that we've known for a long time, and has like really solid ideas in terms of how to keep the competition alive. Like that's the one thing that I think I've mentioned to you a lot, is that the really super competitive players that played Heat don't necessarily gravitate towards Unbound, and it's mostly because of the burst NOS, which is honestly, and I've said it so many times, it's a feature I really like in the game. I thought it was so different that I liked it, but I definitely see how it just doesn't allow people to race side by side in a really competitive environment. Like I don't know if you've watched any of the old like Need for Speed Heat battles that the Need for Speed League has put on, but some of the racing is crazy. These guys, the talent that these guys have, the ability to stay within inches of each other's cars, it reminds me of actual professional racing. Yep. And it's something that is really just not super possible with Unbound, or at the very least it's just not as easy. The game doesn't facilitate it as much. So and that kind of brings me to the next question by Simji, is that he says, for someone who's a competitive NFS player, what would you say to those who are losing a bit of hope for Need for Speed, since the current state of Unbound doesn't really facilitate competition? Like, is there anything you can say to make those guys feel a little bit better?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so what I will say on it is that we see and understand it, and I think for a long time we start to think about Need for Speed, and when you think about how Need for Speed is compared to some other racing games in the genre, like the amount of variables there are within Need for Speed in terms of traffic, that we are a little bit more on the battling side, a little bit like there is just so many kind of variables that then come in from a competitive side.
Definitely.
But that's not to say that. So definitely we foresee in the future that we want to make a place so that there is a destination people can go and have the competitive driving. I see what the guys are doing in the Need for Speed League, for example, and what they're doing outside the game. Like, we would love to then, in the future when we can, then make sure that that's facilitated properly.
Exactly.
We have been speaking a little bit around, are there things that we could do like now, potentially?
Short term?
Yeah, is there some short-term things that we can do? Obviously, it's a balancing up between everything we've got, and we don't want to just necessarily throw something in without it then having the proper forethought through it and then making it feel right. I mean, there are probably some things that we can play around with. So, for example, even on the blog post, right, we put out just a week on Volume 7, I said in there, like, if people want to see a drift event, for example, where we've got the collision turned on instead of off, then we potentially do that. I mean, there is a potential where we could do a playlist where it's like collisions are off, right? And so you can race with collisions off. So then that might get us, it's not going to get us the full way there towards competitive, but it will get us part way there.
Right.
So yeah, there is some, like, levers and stuff we could potentially pull. And we do see it, obviously, we're called Need for Speed. It's about competition. It's about going fast. It's about those kind of things. And we know that's an area we should try and index on more. So
yeah, I think in general, I think it's okay to cater to a wide audience of very casual players. I think that's important because, number one, it leads to more sales for the game, and that's good for the companies involved. It's good for making the next one. But I think there definitely needs to be a focus for the players that spend thousands of hours in the game. And those guys are they're racers of mastery. They're mastering the game. They're figuring out what the limits of the game actually are. And I think that's we just need to not, from my perspective, I feel like just need to not get in their way of doing that, if that makes sense. And I think the Unbound, unfortunately, just didn't do enough to facilitate them. And I think that's really the key word here going forward. You don't have to build specific things, but just make it so that competition can take place.
I think that's exactly right. As you're saying, we need to, as I say, understand what are all the variables that we can allow to put in place so that people can play in the way they want to play. It sounds a bit cliche, like play how you want to play, but it really is, right? Like making sure that we've got that set up so people can get in and do that. So not something that obviously we can do right now because that would involve a lot of different changes. But if we can then change some of those parameters with the stuff that we can play with now, then of course we'll look into it. Yeah,
this comment by Goliath is pretty. It's one thing that I've been thinking about actually recently, is that Unbound competitive gets walked all over with nothing in place to stop cheaters, as his comment. But this is something that I've been thinking about, because it does raise the question as to what happens to all of those creative communities that are creating mods for the game. Like, let's say you put anti-cheat in the game, you enlist an anti-cheat service, all of those creative communities disappear, and I don't know. That's a tough decision. I don't want to put you on the spot with that question, but I feel like this is something that we don't really think about too much in a community. We think about mostly what's good for us, not necessarily what's good for others, right? And I don't know. If I had it my way, I think anti-cheat probably should be part of the equation, just because it makes other things possible. Leaderboards, competitive play, general, I don't know, not having to deal with cheaters in the game. I don't think it's a super prevalent thing. Like, I don't think it's something that every single race you go into, someone's cheating. I honestly, I rarely see it, but from a competitive standpoint and a leaderboard standpoint, it's definitely an issue. So I don't know. There's discussions to be had amongst you guys in the team, I think, when it comes to anti-cheat, competitive play, and leaderboards, things like that. But
yeah, I think it is, again, just going back to, we need to make enough doors, destinations, places, so that we can facilitate all those different pieces, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not wanting to take away from any creativity or ways or styles of play, but also at the same time, as say, we don't want to then infringe on other people. So there's stuff in there, so yeah, stuff.
It's a tough job, man. It's a tough job that you have. It's a tough job to make games. It's a tough job to create anything that is for other people. I mean, I don't know. I see it kind of in the line of work that, Steven and I do. Is comment section is tough, man. I mean, we make something that it's rough. We make something that we're proud of, or that we think will help people, and then we get sometimes you get a comment that's like just completely ruins the day. And yeah.
One thing I'll say on that is that the way I work with those kind of things, because after be in the games industry now for I don't know, 13 years, 14 years, you come to quickly learn, like, if you take all of that stuff in, then you're gonna have very bad days all the time. And something I've come to learn, and this is a lovely additional tangent, come to learn from just thinking about more around thought process and how you see other people, and how you what you read in from other people, is that you never know what that person's feeling, right? Some people, honestly, being jackasses because they can and they want to, but you never know what's happening for someone else at the same time. So let's try to come from that point of positivity first. Secondly, if someone comes at me with just a random comment that's going to just be inflammatory or not thought out or whatever, I'm not going to listen to it. I'm not going to pay it any time of day. It's not going to register. Yeah. Whereas if you've come to me legitimately with something which is like, hey, this is a genuine concern and this is XYZ reason why, I will listen to it. And as much as possible, I try to reply to it. So yeah, that's the way I think we just have to go about it. So
I appreciate that advice. I don't do that. I read the comment and I go, this motherfucker. Why is he gotta do this to me today? I'm like, dude, it's like not a good day for this.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, resilience isn't always there, especially like anything on the creative side, right? I mean, it's not just the creative side. That's probably unfair to say, but I think especially on the creative side, you put heart, soul, passion into what you're doing, right? And anyone within the studio, and that's not just to say people on the artistic side, design side, that everyone puts that heart and soul into it, whether it's coding, whether it's QV, whatever it is, right? Yeah. And so to then get those comments that then come around it is, it can be, if you then take that on board, it's tough, but you just, it's part of the job, part of the way you roll. But just coming back to that kind of mindset piece as well, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, is that having that kind of moment the other night where I was sitting down playing the game and really like thinking, holy crap, like we've put this together and this is actually something that's in the game now and is out there to other people, is that idea of imposter syndrome. Like it's real, like it's a total thing. And I often think, I see other people within the industry, I see other other creative directors, or just even other people within EA, right? And I think to myself, holy cow, like how put together are they? How are they doing this stuff? How does that keep going? Yeah. And it's just, I think I've now come to the realization, if you don't have any imposter syndrome, you're probably in a bad place.
You're a psychopath, probably.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I didn't say it.
I did. It's all right.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have that that kind of humbleness about you, right?
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
you're never gonna be the best, absolute best at anything. You're never gonna know everything, and if you do, then what's the point? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
You always want to get better. Yeah.
That kind of reminds me. I was asking you, I think, before the podcast about the art style. This is something super interesting to me. Steven and I are both huge fans of the art style of the game. We really like it. Like,
I love the contrast of like the realism in the cars and everything, and like I don't know the word for it, like the cartoonish like effects that come off. Like I don't know. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion it actually enhances the experience of the game.
Yeah.
But obviously, at launch, I feel like there was almost instantly this crazy divide. It was very polarizing. There was people that loved it, who were excited about it, and there was people that just hated it. Did the team like really take that one to heart? Like the people that didn't like it, was it just like there was a bunch of people in the office like, I told you so? Or was it just like, I don't know, was it a tough decision, or was everybody on board from the beginning, or like how did that go?
Yeah, I mean, it's again like it's because it's a lot of things. It's down to personal preference, right? And I think the thing that we want to do, and the thing that Need for Speed does so well in terms of is self-expression, right? And what we kind of foresee with this, with the stylistic styles, with the stylistic VFX, is that self-expression. If you want to be self-expressive with this, and that's the way you want to go, then go for it. This is like an additional kind of I was gonna say feather in the hat. What a random metaphor to give. But like, yeah, it is that kind of piece, right? It's if you want to show up that way and you want to do that, great, go and do that. I think one of the things we realize in this kind of second year of live service, we obviously hear what the players are saying, and it's about choice. If you want to have the choice to then turn those off, great, you can do that. And if you want to have it stylistic, to your point as well around the gameplay utility around it, we even said in the patch notes, right? It's like the stylistic version is going to give you more feedback compared to the unrealistic, just because it's the way it's been set up from the get-go, and it was always a choice that isn't just pure visuals. It's something that does have gameplay feedback, and then is to kind of enhance the actual gameplay that we're doing itself. And yeah, I think it's one of those. It's like music, right? We have music come up a lot all the time as well. Hey, why have you got this type of music in, or why don't you have this type of music, or whatever? It's just so subjective. And I won't labour on the music point because that's probably a whole different separate podcast in itself. But just to hear as well, like from people that we understand, again, like what I hear loud and clear isn't necessarily that the music in there is wrong. It's just that people want variation.
Preference.
Like, it's preference, right?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
And I think that's the thing with anything, and again, especially with Need for Speed being about what we do with our customization, what we do with self-expression, like it's just making sure that we index and hit that. So yeah, I think
yeah, absolutely. I want to switch gears because something that you did in that interview that I talked about earlier actually was super interesting to me. You have like this weird connection with Star Wars lore. And I think it's important for people to know that you were at least part of the team that created some things within the Star Wars universe, even though it's not related to Need for Speed. Can you just like quickly give us that? What is your Star Wars story?
But for what we were doing previously, or
yes,
just...
with what you were able to do with like the with LucasArts and the basically the story you gave in that Guildford interview.
Yeah, geez, I have to remember what I said now. So essentially, we did a Star Wars VR mission. So it was the Star Wars X-Wing Rogue One VR mission. I think I'm getting that right. Yeah, and so this was tying into the film that was there, and it was a great project to work on. Actually, it was my first VR project working on that. Totally different way of developing a game. Totally different way of
in VR, you mean?
In VR, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Like sorry, no, I'm losing my track now, aren't I? You're talking about for Starfighter Assault.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, Steven, what was the? You had some.
Yeah. Oh my God, I forgot. When I was watching it, I remember you were basically saying how you guys have basically developed almost like lore of for Star Wars, like things that became canon in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, so I mean, this, yeah, it's not something that happens like often, but yeah, when we were creating the mission that we were creating as part of the DLC for Starfighter Assault, it was basically set. I can't remember the exact time, but it's like a small period of time before the film actually opens, before Rogue One opens. And so it was us looking at a scenario that had happened before then part of the film then kind of carried out and then started. So yeah, there were some components that we ended up making within that mission which didn't exist in Star Wars lore. So then we had to do some of the concepts. Are you talking about the gravity wells? Is this what you? Yeah.
I believe that's what you were saying. Yeah.
So we ended up thinking about the concept for it, and the reason why I wanted to really push on something like this kind of goes back to the similar thing that I was talking about earlier in terms of variation of play within the game. In that I wanted to have something which was going to physically affect the ship, other than the player, so that the player then had to fight against it. And so yeah, we ended up going in and then actually thinking about, well, if we've got these things, what could be able to do that? Thinking about pulses, thinking about different pieces, and then we ended up starting to think about some of the way in which the component pieces of some of the bigger ships were made up. And so yeah, we ended up starting to scour the kind of Star Wars universe and thinking, well, what tech is already there that we could make use of, and then started to basically kind of kit bash an idea together of how this thing could work. And we had to think about how they might even be carried on the ship and be deployed into the space itself. How would they unfold? How are they powered? So it was a great like exercise in thinking about how, on a very, very small scale, how even somebody world building or within the Star Wars universe thinks about it as a whole, right?
Right.
But yeah, it was super cool to be able to get in contact with that. I was very lucky actually enough to be, when I was over in San Francisco, I was actually over there for an EA like internal conference. But while I was there, we got to go around Lucasfilm, and we were able to go around the studio there and see inside, and we went on the studio tour and that kind of stuff. So it was super cool. I was very lucky to be able to do that.
And
That's
some
awesome.
of that stuff made it into some of like the movies now, or like, am I wrong on that? Like
Yeah, it's one of the sequences. So again, I don't think it's 1-to-1 on what they ended up doing there with those actual pieces, but it's it's like a continuation of that beat of the story. So on the VR mission though, when we did the VR, we ended up being able to model our version of the inside of X-wing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's interesting, man. I it's one of those projects you work on where you're like, did I really just do that? Did I make that?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I remember story time on the VR mission actually. So it was I think it was my first. Was it? Yeah, I think so. It was my first Gamescom, and we were doing some behind closed doors stuff at Gamescom where we were showing the VR mission off. And we were doing a thing basically where any time somebody came in and then had the headset on, because this was when PSVR first came out, they'd have the headset on, and then whilst they had the headset on and they're in, obviously doing the mission itself, we take selfies of with ourselves behind people whilst they got the headset on. So I've got like hundreds of selfies of just like random people. I've got like
they don't even know.
I mean, we showed them afterwards as well.
Yeah.
One of like one of the mayors of Germany. I've got like random one with us and KSI, and just random, and then even when then people came into the studio, if we had people visiting, and we do the same. So we'd had like Jade Raymond was in at one point when she's doing studio video. I've got like a random selfie of her in VR. So it's
nice.
It's fun.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. All right. Well, that was our off-topic question. I had to do it just because Steven and I talked about it a little bit, and cool. I was interested. I'm like, man, that's super cool to work on some Star Wars. But to sort of bring it all back around to Need for Speed real quick, and then I'll ask you a few random questions just to, as an ode to this really stupid, silly podcast that we do every week. let's talk real quickly about the biggest challenge you had with, specifically with Volume 7. If you can share a little bit of like the behind the scenes, what was the biggest hurdle in shipping that volume? What was the team's biggest problem? Also, by the way, I'm noticing the comments. I promise you guys, they know about the HUD issue. And it's gonna happen I'm sure you're gonna get a hot fix for it.
Yes, just to dispel on HUD. We see the HUD issue we're looking at the moment, and we'll get whatever we can do on the fix out as soon as possible.
Yeah, so for sure.
We'll do some official comms on that soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, we totally see it. And the music issue player as well. We see that too. So yeah, we'll be getting on that and giving comms on that soon too. What's the toughest thing? I think some of the times, if I'm being honest, it's ambition. Like, the team obviously want to be able to push the highest level of quality and the most amount in, and we have to be careful about what we can then pick up and actually do in the time period that we have before we need to put the volume out.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's that. It's like having this, and this is something that I reminded the team during the week actually, it's that what we're doing for this year is the sum of all its parts. It's not one individual feature, it's how it all comes together as a whole piece, right? So stuff that on the drift, stuff on drag, stuff on leagues, is there stuff that we would like to go further with it? Absolutely. Like, like we would like to index on different pieces, like to add more quality, like to add more variation, like all of those kind of things. But we just have to think about what's the time we've got, what's the team we've got, and what can we put out there. So
yeah,
I'd say probably that really, which is a little bit fluffy, I guess.
No,
but
it's fine.
True.
But it is true. It is true. I totally get that. I've honestly, the ambition versus reality thing is it's always an issue for creative projects like this, especially when there's a lot of investment involved. This EA Criterion, everybody's invested their time, their money into making this product, and they're hoping that it sells to the consumers. But the longer it takes to bring to market, the more money you're spending developing it. It's a reality that we have to deal with in the games industry.
Yeah, and not even just that. It's obviously for the first time we kind of, for a long time in Need for Speed, we put out this roadmap, right? And we want to make sure that we're staying in line and hitting that for when we've said to players. So, there's we could just go, okay, cool, we're going to take 6 months to put a volume out, but then we're not going to deliver the most amount of content that we want to deliver to the players over the course of this year. So. Yeah,
that makes sense. Shout out to Richard Price. Thank you so much, man, for the 10 euros. Is that pounds or is that euros?
Pounds.
It's one of those.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I'm a dumb American, dude. I don't even know. I appreciate it, man. Just wanted to say thank you for the team's work on the updates for the game. He's played Need for Speed for nearly 30 years, so it's refreshing to see how much passion they have, or you guys have, for Need for Speed. And Richard, I'm gonna double down on that. The passion is what you're seeing publicly is probably, I would say it's maybe a tenth of what is actually there at the team. Like, my experience at Criterion was unbelievable. Honestly changed my mind about the game, because I felt like the game was in good hands. You guys are really passionate about the game. You guys love the game. You guys want to make it the best experience possible. So thank you, Richard. Appreciate that so much. Are you're okay on time? I've got 5 very quick questions for you.
Yeah, I can do 5 quick questions. Yeah,
right.
just to say, like, on that point, there are so many people within the team that, so everything down to some of the shots that you'll see on the playlist cards, for example, right? It's the thinking. So, like, Jay, one of our cinematic artists, will be in and thinking about how. One of the ones I really like, as an example, the on-road and track. So, like, back to the original Need for Speed, right? Mm-hmm. How he then managed to set it up so that it looks like the cover art of the original Need for Speed, but using cars that we got in Unbound, world that we got in Unbound. Like, he knows that his stuff, and he will know his stuff for Underground. So you will see then some of the playlist cars you've got in there as well. Try and replicate as much as possible. Like Bryn, who's our art producer for vehicles. He's basically Mr. Vehicle within Criterion, right? He's love not just for Need for Speed, but for cars and car culture in general is just there all the time, and that proliferates through to the rest of the whole of the vehicle team, right? So Billy, Frankie, like too many names to name, right? But even for people that hasn't necessarily then been involved in Need for Speed for a long period of time, so whether they're new to the studio or new to the franchise and working in that sense, everyone on the team is so diligent to then go out and then research if they haven't been part of a previous game before, or it's tapping on a feature that was in a previous game, they go research that, whether it's playing it, whether it's YouTube videos, whether it's breaking down and understanding. So the guys, honestly, just to big them up a little bit, right? Because they really do put the time and effort in, and they do sweat the details. So whilst we can't then execute on absolutely everything we want to do all the time, you best believe like they are there like worrying about what are they going to say about this bit. We can't treat this bit like passionate in that. So
yeah, I think people get into the industry for that reason though too. It seems like the games industry is a more passionate. You definitely care about your work more in that industry than in others. I would say it's you're creating, you're giving birth, man. You're creating something that doesn't exist. So it's pretty interesting that to see, or it's from my point of view, it's just refreshing. It was refreshing to see the team and that everybody cared, and it was genuine, man. Those meetings were great. So hopefully everyone can see that. Steven, I feel like I've dominated this, and I'm sorry.
You're good, man. You good. You're all good. I'm just hanging out.
Yeah. There is one question in the 5 questions I'm gonna let you ask. I'm sure you know which one it is. But in these 5, we have a small story to give you as well with one of these questions. Yeah. But anyway, the 5 questions we give you here at the end of the podcast, then we'll let you go. What's your favorite game franchise of all time?
Oh man, I knew this question was going to come up. I have a cheat answer because I can't pick one, so I have about 5 or 6. But I mean, one of the ones which I talk about quite often is Zelda. As you'll be able to see in the background. I do love Zelda. And it's not to say I don't like Need for Speed or why isn't that my top, right? It's just I think slight tangent. Said about tangents. I think if you work on a game franchise that you truly have loved since like childhood, not to say that is the wrong thing to do, but I don't think you can come at it from the same perspective as what you would be able to, right? And I think it kind of breaks that lore, that illusion behind it. So some people who are outside of gaming and stuff have said to me like, do you not want to work on Zelda one day? Do you want to kind of do that? Apart from the fact that I'm not Japanese and it would never happen.
Right.
As much as I'm sure there are obviously people working on Zelda that aren't Japanese, but I mean it's just that I wouldn't want to break the veil. I wouldn't want to break the illusion that I get, because when I play, there's select games that I come in and play that I don't have my creative director hat on for. I don't start to analyze, I don't start to break it down. I just want to be fully immersed in what that piece is. Yes. And Zelda is one of those for me. So,
I have that exact same feeling with racing games. I love playing them, and we make content on it daily, but when I just think about just kind of relaxing and playing games, it's never a racing game. It's always just like a shooter or a survival game, or it's something else. It's just something beside, because I'm spending the majority of my time making content for racing games. So it's just, I totally resonate with that 100%. And speaking of racing games, what is your favorite racing game?
I'm going to have to backtrack because I feel like I'm doing a disservice. It's almost like a disservice to my children if I don't say the other mentions. So, Zelda, Street Fighter, Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts. There's quite a few. Devil May Cry, which is a bit of a left field one.
Yeah, that one's a little.
I absolutely love Devil May Cry. I think are they the main ones? Yes, I think they're the main ones.
That's
I'll
good.
be forgetting something now, and then I'll think about it later and go, "Oh crap, why didn't I say?"
Yeah, exactly. All right, racing game. What's your favorite? For this one, you got to pick one. You can't do that shit where you pick like 27. All right.
Is this favorite racing game ever, or Need for Speed?
Sure,
favorite racing game ever. You don't work for Criterion EA right now. You can tell me. We'll just be our little secret. It's okay.
Just our looks.
Yeah, no one will know. It'll just
No
be
one's
between
gonna
us.
know.
Oh,
It's a tough one.
it is a tough one. Honestly, a tough one. I think it's very close. But I think it is 2005 Most Wanted.
Wow.
OG Most Wanted.
Mm.
And
Sellout.
it's very
Just a straight
it's,
sellout.
I know that's why I almost didn't want to say it. But, I was like weighing up in my head. The very very close second, and this is in all honesty would be Burnout Takedown.
Okay, that's fair.
So honestly, like without wanting to go down the whole Burnout route, like Burnout is like the game that got me kind of into racing, and there's this kind of comment that we used to hear a lot of the time in that I'm not really into racing games, but I like Burnout.
Yeah.
And that was just like this kind of piece.
Yep.
So yeah, I feel like that, but like honestly, Most Wanted, the reason why I'm Most Wanted is because it just does such an amazing job, and this is where if Pat's still in the chat, he's going to start shouting shots again. Does this really great thing of Ludo narrative harmony, and this piece that I bang on about again in the studio and stuff. Ludo narrative harmony, in a nutshell, is basically that the gameplay systems, the narrative, and what you're doing all tie in nicely together. And so the way in which in that world you've got the blacklist and the rap sheet and the way the cop system and the narrative all tied together nicely is just like perfection, right?
Sure.
And so there's so many things within that I think that just work so well, and I would love to then take that forward in some places.
Yep.
See, like I told you, he's comment. Oh
There
god,
he
I
is.
said it. Said
There
the
he
Ludo
is.
narrative. But yeah. So there we go. Most Wanted.
Gotcha. This one's a little bit of a left field question, but I'm a sports guy. Okay, I like sports. I grew up playing basketball, football as a young kid, and then baseball my entire life. And so I want to know, what, if any, is your favorite sport?
Interesting. Yeah, I was talking a little bit about before we came on air. I'm not a huge sports person, honestly. I played rugby a bit when I was at university.
Did you really? Okay.
But I don't really follow it. I don't like have a team or anything like that. If I had to pick a sport, this one I didn't think about earlier. Like I really like X Games actually, if that counts.
Sure.
Yeah, I like watching the X Games stuff. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Anything comes to that. Skateboard, I was super into skateboarding for a very long time. Tony Hawk's is another one of those franchises, right?
We grew up in the same generation, so skateboarding is every single person I knew growing up rode a skateboard at some point.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally understand that. And X Games got really big as we were kind of becoming young adults. So 100%, I get it.
Do you?
So yeah.
I was just gonna say, do you watch any like combat sports, like MMA or boxing or anything?
More recently, I've got more into boxing. I think that's just been a resurgence just in general. I think as they started to pump me more into it. So yeah, I can appreciate boxing more. So if there's a big fight on, so yeah, I watched the Fury Usyk fight at the weekend, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's something about it. Like I think on the outside, it's just mindless violence, but it's not the tactics, the skill, the training involved. It's just like if you really lighten up, like it's super impressive. So
I've been UFC is pretty much like the only sport that I watch or like keep up with. I'm big on like the UFC. I enjoy watching it.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's funny on the going back to the X Games side of things as well. We just like every other gamer out there, we have like reminiscing about certain games and franchises and stuff in the office, and often one that pops up is around SSX, and we're always just like, man, it'd be so cool just getting up on SSX.
Such a good game, dude.
Yeah, so that's why it's so really cool actually to see what's happening with Skate, right, and how we're looking to bring up. So
for sure. All right, Steven, the moment has come. This is something we've been talking about for a while, but whether or not to ask you, I'm gonna let him go for it because
because it's such a wild question.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the most, having you on, this is the most like
legitimate,
structured podcast
we've ever
done. Like this has been like, just back to back, just good conversation. Where
You're scaring him now.
normally chat goes crazy and we talk about a million different things and we're all over the place. But week after week, there's like 2 topics
They keep coming up.
that chat just will not drop.
Okay.
You're blaming them?
Yeah, it's on them.
Okay.
And it got to the point where they donated money to buy a bidet for me.
Okay.
And so last week we were talking about how you're going to be on, and people want to know. Do you have a bidet?
No.
Is it
There you
common? All right. We all know now. But
Now we know, guys.
the thing is,
Is this like one of those things that people think happens in the UK, or like?
yes.
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 The thing is very common in like Europe
Yes.
and Asia.
So probably in wider Europe, then yes, but UK is not like a
UK
standardized thing.
is not a standard.
Gotcha.
All right.
We aren't French,
they-
says Patrick.
We're not French. All right.
Like this is
The
Sorry,
lead-
it's a very left field question.
it's
Alright.
super left
But it's
field.
something like it's literally every week this gets brought up.
Every week. It's like, can we
why,
get a...
why, sorry, just back, why? So why have you now got a bidet? What's the?
So
Okay,
someone
so
came into
start-
chat.
Yeah, go ahead.
Someone came into chat and with a super left field random question. And the question is very raunchy, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I'm going to tell you what it is anyway. They came in and they donated I think it was like $5 or $10
Yeah.
for us to this question. And it was, do you wipe or let it crust? And I was thrown off because I didn't even know letting it crust was an option for people. Okay. That's a little bit up beyond what I would be willing to do. So we
Right.
started getting into it as a topic and chat was going crazy. And then the bidet thing came up. And for some reason, chat was like, if we donate enough money to get a bidet, you have to, Steven has to try it. And so then we ended up, they donated a bunch and bought him a bidet, and then he tried it and gave a review the next pot. Anyway, it's become a thing. So now every week we have a bidet update and how it's going and what power setting he's up to now. And it's just become
you
a
just
thing.
made that so much worse than it is.
Well,
It's all right.
What that leads me to think though is that then you are leaving to crust, which is why then you need the
bidet. Exactly. For the record, I don't know that Steven actually needed it, but
No.
chat really wanted him to try
we
it.
didn't need. No, what happened? Yeah, I think somebody, when we were talking about it, we were like, somebody brought up bidets, and I think we were both on like, we've never used them, like
Yeah.
they're not really like a thing, like we don't even know. So then it ended up being like, well, we're gonna buy you one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's it. That was number 4.
Sorry, yeah, that was the wild one. The wild one's gone.
A couple
This
of
one,
additional notes for you while you're here. I've been hazed about saying ludonarrative harmony already by one of our head of brand,
right.
and then I've also just been told that bidets are very common in Argentina.
Oh, there we
Oh.
go.
There we go.
There we go. So all those Argentine, that's right,
I'm
viewers.
just saying, you guys
they-
need to get your hygiene up, right?
Yeah, you know what? I'm not even on your level. We're not on your level. That's what it is. We're not on Steven's level, unfortunately.
Squeaky.
Now this one is dividing the chat every week. We divide the chat every week with this question: do you like pineapple on pizza?
Hell no.
What? Come on.
No. No.
Right.
Pineapple should not be allowed on pizza.
Well,
It
John,
wasn't
thanks for
even-
coming on.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Well, we're gonna have to delete this interview. So, all right. So, everyone's
sorry.
against us.
If I look at it from a logical level, I get it. The sweet,
Right.
the sour, like I get it, right? But yeah, no, I mean, it's just wrong. Cold pineapple on a hot pizza. It's
No, you
just,
put it in the oven. You don't put it cold.
No, you cook it on.
You cook it.
pineapple's even worse. It's like hot tomatoes. I really hate hot tomatoes.
Okay, so you're telling me
Alright.
you've never had like grilled pineapple?
Oh no, I might have had grilled, but like as a dessert type thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like here's what I would do with pineapple. You cut it into the little triangles and you put it on a skewer. and then you put a piece of steak on that skewer as well, and then you put an onion and you put a potato, and you drop that on the barbecue, and it is phenomenal. Like that combination of stuff is just, it's great. So grilled pineapple is something I really enjoy, but pineapple on pizza is just great. Steve and I both have separately, individually, we came to this conclusion. We came to the conclusion that pineapple, pepperoni, and jalapeno is the best pizza ever.
See, I feel like a jalapeno thing is like an American thing as well. Like, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's just me not being great with spicy stuff. But I'm not about jalapeno. Although I appreciate a jalapeno popper.
Okay.
But not. Yeah, but I think it's because it's wrapped in cheese.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm big on spicy food. I love spicy food.
Yeah,
so.
same.
No, I can't really do it. I don't mind mild spice. Like, I'm not one of the UK peeps who's like really up on a really spicy curry. I like a medium.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a huge? Is spice like a? Do people in the UK really like spice? Is that something that's, or no?
Some people do, but it won't go as far as like. So we have so curry is obviously like a big thing in the UK. And Nando's, funnily enough, as well, like as a thing, and so you get spice on that. So you guys know what Nando's is?
It's a chicken, right?
Yeah, it's chicken place, which is basically grilled chicken. It's grilled chicken, chips, that kind of stuff. I think it's originally Portuguese. I think I could be wrong, but yeah, something that's been very much adopted in the UK.
Gotcha.
So yeah, you get spiced chicken on that and spicy curries, but it's not a staple. Like if you're going to the pub and stuff, there's not going to be a whole abundance of spicy food like on the menu. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, we both come from California, which is basically Mexico city. Basically. We've broken off into Mexico, which is really funny to say, honestly, because if you asked a real Mexican person about the California Mexican food, they would say it's dog shit. Because it's not actual Mexican food. It's just Mexican food that's designed for white people, which is hilarious. Anyways, we come from a place where, you know, salsas and spice and carne asada and just like and I moved to Texas recently and just, it's not here. There's none here.
No?
There's not, I'm disappointed.
I would have thought there would be more so there. But...
There is Mexican food here. It's not. It's nothing close to it.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, I remember. So I've been to LA a few times, and then having Mexican food in LA was like a whole different. Like you don't get decent Mexican food in the UK.
No.
Like honestly, I mean, it's funny. Like we've just started to get like Taco Bells and stuff over here. But like I don't think they're the benchmark.
But yeah, certainly not. They're the benchmark.
Taco Bell's great. Taco Bell's great, but it's not Mexican food though.
You will need to buy a bidet after eating Taco Bell for sure, 100%.
But when I had it actually in a proper restaurant over in LA, like that was another level. That's like the kind of same as having ramen in the UK versus having ramen in Japan, right? It was that sort of
sure. Yeah.
So,
yeah. What's the UK known for in terms of food? It's just being really terrible.
Fish and chips and curry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm being offensive now. Sorry. I snuck it.
You thought you were gonna get away with that one.
I would say the main things would be fish and chips. We say fish, like if it's like huge, big, battered pieces of cod and chunky chips, not like fries, right?
Talk about like big like potatoes, basically. Yeah.
That. So curry, as I said as well, like is very institutionalized. A Sunday roast as well, like a roast dinner, which is essentially some kind of roast meat. Like it doesn't have to be meat, obviously, if you're vegetarian. But chicken, beef, lamb, that kind of stuff. Potatoes, vegetables, Yorkshire puddings is a thing, and I think you're only supposed to really have it with beef, but people just have it with everything. It's essentially it's kind of like a pancake, I guess. It's like batter type thing. Anyway, and then loads of gravy usually. And then the other thing I think is Nando's comes into it. Greg's is the more recent thing. People go mad for Greg's is basically a bakery, but it's a chain. It's a chain of bakeries, but there's so many people I see now that when they come over to the UK, they're like, "Oh, we've got to go to Greg's. We've got to try Greg's." And for us, it's just like a place where you go and grab some quick lunch or snack, like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
sandwich and a sausage roll. Like the sausage rolls are their things there, like whatever. But yeah, everyone's trying to come over and get the Greg's going.
That's a tourist spot.
Yeah.
Sounds like a Panera or something.
Yeah, like a bakery. We have a bakery chain. You know Panera Bread? You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
It's like that's probably our Greg's over here.
That's what it sounds like.
It's not very
Bakery and do,
touristy.
like,
People are not.
sandwiches and stuff.
Yeah, people are not coming over here saying, "Well, we need to go to Panera Bread," but it is like our bakery sandwiches, stuff like that.
Yeah. No, cool.
Anyways, all right. Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time, man. You stayed a lot longer than I thought. I appreciate it.
Fun.
And you're welcome back anytime, dude. We can come and just talk about bidets and toilets and whatever, Taco Bell. It's fine. But we did.
Tell me quick. The triggers just because of your gamer tag.
Yes. Well, okay. So the gamer tag came about because I was getting reported in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 for having controller mods because I had such a quick trigger finger with the FAL, which is a single shot rifle. So I was so fast at it, I would get reported all the time for having a modded controller.
Yeah.
And so I just adopted the trigger as the name, and I've just always been Trigger since then.
Oh, interesting. Because I don't know if you ever heard of Only Fools and Horses.
I don't think so.
It's a UK program, but yeah, there's a character in that called Trigger, and whenever I see Trigger or your name, I just think of that. So there you go. There's a random thing to look up.
Nice.
And one last one before I go is that I'm super happy that in the patch notes, if you go and check in the patch notes, I managed to get Cheltenham races in there.
Yes.
Yeah,
I saw that.
I saw
Did
you.
you see my?
Did
Did you see my video? Oh my god!
You're like Cheltenham
what
races.
is
Like, what
this?
the hell is this?
He's like, I don't know what this is.
I don't know what this is, dude.
Just random, like it's this horse race place.
Are you writing all the patch notes? Well, this year, basically.
So it's a group effort.
Okay.
Honestly, like it's a kind of effort between myself, Pat, and some of our brand team as well. Just because we want to make sure that we've got that player voice, dev voice in there, and that we're coming at it properly. But it is a team effort in that sense, and that we'll get the kind of frame of it together, then push it back into the team, make sure they're happy, we haven't missed anything. So it's just part of the open transparency, right? We want to make sure that we're
For sure. After meeting you guys both, you and Pat, I can hear it. I can hear you guys when I read the patch notes, and it's kind of nice. It's little what do you call it? God dang it! What's that word when you find something that's in the game that's not supposed to be there? That is there.
like
what is it?
Easter egg.
Easter egg. God, it's just like a little Easter egg for my mind when I read the patch notes. I'm like, that's sounds exactly like John and Pat. So
yeah, sweet. Good.
Anyway,
glad to hear it. Cool.
All right, Mel. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it, dude. It's been a great episode, and hopefully I'm gonna try to get you again before or after Volume 8. We'd love to do it again. You're also welcome to just come by and hang out. I know it's like 4 a.m. for you when we normally record, so but you're welcome to, if you can't sleep, you're welcome to just pop in.
Yeah,
I did threaten beforehand when you were saying just being in the Discord now, I might just randomly drop in. So
yeah,
who knows?
Do it anytime. So
cool.
All right, guys. Chat, thank you guys so much. I'm gonna end it here. I actually have to pee so bad, and so we're not gonna do much talking after. We're just gonna end it here. We were planning on talking afterwards, but this is good enough, and I appreciate it, John. Thank you, man.
Yeah, for real, thank you.
All right.
No, thank you both. Yeah, appreciate it, guys. All right,
bye, guys. Bye.